Chief Pratt, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about the ballot questions that are coming up on the August ballot for Kearney area voters. So if you would please just, in your own words, there's two ballot questions, just in your own words, kind of explain what those ballots effort mean, what you're asking of voters.
Okay. So we voted a bond issue in 2010. Those bonds are due to pay off here in the coming years, I think 2027. So we have been considering building a second fire station for several years, as far back really as like prior to the other bond issue in 2010. Due to the economical times at that point, we decided obviously to step back from that, kind of focus our efforts here in the location that we're at. We were able to replace a bunch of equipment at that point. All of those apparatus are basically coming to the end of their service life. So that was one component of the bond issue, was to be able to replace the apparatus, and then as well as fund the building of a second location on the west side of the community, really based upon two things: the development and the populace of the subdivisions in that area and the ones that are planned for the west side, as well as trying to accommodate getting people to within 5 miles of a fire station. And the significance of that is so they can garner the best ISO rating for their homeowners insurance.
Okay. So, Chief, how has call volumes or need for resources changes in the last 3 to 5 years?
So if you look back to 2020, we ran 1,877 calls. Versus last year, we ran 2,240. So over that 3-year period, we increased just under 20%. I think it was 19.3%. If you go back to 2015, so you've got almost a 10-year span there, we were running about 1,600 calls. So that would be an increase through 2023 of about 36%. If you project that out to 2026, and the reason I picked that is if we would be successful in our issues, it would basically take somewhere in the upward end of the 2-year to 3-year range to complete a fire station. So we would be looking, by the time we occupy that station, we would be looking at the 2026 statistics. So if you take that 19% over the last 3 years and apply that to the next 3 years, we would be upwards of 2,650 calls. And then if you stretch that 3-year point to 2029, we'd be up over 3,100. And I know that's forecasting, but some point we have to be able to forecast those numbers.
Mm-hmm. So currently, how many staffers do you have at the station, and what is the current station's capacity?
I'm sorry, what was the first part?
The number of staffers you have, so fire, paramedics, EMTs on a shift at a time.
Yep. So we have 24 shift personnel, 3 shifts of 8, and then 3 staff people. That consists of myself, the fire marshal, and our administrative assistant. On successful completion of these issues, we would plan to up that shift staffing to 11 per day. So we have a total of 30.
And are you at capacity there now?
So we have sleeping quarters for up to 12. I will tell you that this building was, when it was renovated last, was 2004. And with the way the rest of the station was designed, day room, kitchen, office spaces, and things like that, they really weren't designed to accommodate 12 people. While we have those beds, a lot of those were designed to have supplemental staff with volunteers. When we had a pretty good group of volunteers, when they stayed over, we'd have places for them to sleep as well. So we can put a couple more people in here. It will begin to get tighter, obviously, but in the short run, that would be something we would try to do anyway, is to try to up staff here most of the way to what our expected staffing levels would be in that second facility.
Okay. So with the sales tax that's proposed, how much revenue is expected to be generated by that tax?
So My closest estimate I can give you is that the city has had a half-cent tax. I can't even tell you what it's for, but I just had conversations with that previous administration as well as the current. So I knew that they would have some information based on sales tax. It's projected to be in the $900,000 range this year. And obviously the fire district's a little bigger than the city itself. So there may be some other unrealized revenue there. There's not a lot of commercial development, business development in the rest of the district. A lot of it's residential. So I don't see it being a huge number, but it would probably be slightly larger.
Okay, so a little more than $900,000 annually generated?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a sunset on the tax?
So the way that language is written in state statute, there was not a sunset date in that piece of language that we were able to apply our demographics into.
Gotcha. Okay. And you spoke to this a little bit, but if you could go into some more details for folks who are going to the polls. So that money that's going to be generated, if approved, whether from the bonds being issued and the tax, what specifically would you guys use that money for? And do you have any cost estimates of what it would cost to build that second facility?
Okay. So yeah, the bond issue obviously goes for capital purchases. So we're projecting around $6 million to build a building. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit fluid with the building world. We've tried to dial that in as close as we can based off some rough design estimates and stuff like that of how many people we'd have in a building and the potential equipment that would be there. And then, like I said, we'd be adding a pumper to go into that station. We'd be replacing our reserve truck that is 23 years old. It was purchased in 2001. So as far as ISO recognition, 20 to 25 years is about the max you're going to get out of that. So it is really a piece that needs to be replaced. We also forecast a replacement of the aerial. It was bought in 2013. So around 2028 would be an optimum time to purchase that. Today's market price is around 1.4, 1.6 million on that one piece alone. So those prices have gone up dramatically since we purchased them in 2010 to 2013. And then ambulances. Obviously, most people have seen we have one new one. Hopefully, the second one is going to be delivered later this month. And those are at a cost of about $325,000 each. I will tell you the other component to those things, and the reason I tell you we're looking so far down the road is on the vehicle replacement for fire trucks, especially. They've told us it could be up to 42 months to get those trucks in here. So you're looking at 3.5 years from the day you pull the trigger on it of the order. And obviously, there are some variables in that based upon design, that could potentially speed that up. And then the ambulances we ordered in January of 22. We got the first one in May of this year, and we'll get the second one in July. So it's taken us 28 months to get both those ambulances. So those are things we're having to try to look forward. If we need an ambulance in 3 years, we can't wait and order it in 3 years. We're going to have to be proactive to be able to get those vehicles in service when we need them or when we're projected to need them.
Okay. And Chief, you mentioned a couple of words, and so I was hoping you can kind of explain what those mean for laymen who might not be in the fire industry. So you said apparatus and you said an aerial.
Okay.
What are those specific pieces of equipment? So folks.
Generally speaking, our apparatus are our rolling stock or our vehicles. So we have engines, which some places call pumpers. An aerial is the 105 elevated device with the big 105-foot ladder. Obviously ambulances, and then we have brush trucks and tankers as well. So.
Okay. And so would there be updates as well to the current station, or is this mainly going for replacement of equipment there and then building the new facility with the equipment for that facility?
So, like I said, being 20 years since this building was done, it obviously needs some updating. Obviously the paint, flooring, and things like that could really stand to be redone. Also, we need to make some accommodations for gender differences as our workforce changes. We have they are cubicled sleeping quarters, but they're not individual sleeping quarters. We have independent showers. But, some improvement in that area would be good. Also, maybe, just a little bit of renovation to the day, we call it the day area, where the guys are at during the day, preparing meals, at night where they can gather. There's a big community space where they can network and do things like that. So just some of those basic fundamental upgrades that you'd have to do along the way. And additionally, I tell you, we've got some bay space, like where the vehicles park, the garage, for example. That was really not built originally for the size of vehicles and the weight of the vehicles we have. So there are probably some significant repairs that'll need to be done to that concrete in the next few years as well.
Okay. So, Chief, let me ask you this. One of the criticisms I hear, not just about this tax, but other taxes, is, some folks just say they can't afford another tax. And so that they're tired of taxing entities asking them for money that they can't afford to give. So what's your response to that criticism?
So as a taxpayer, I understand it. I live here, I work here, we shop here. I'm familiar with it just like everybody else is. I have children, and you have to live life. You have to buy groceries. I get all of those things. But if I switch gears to my job here, we have created an expectation of service in the community, high quality EMS service, relatively quick response times. And those are all things we pride ourselves on. And we want to continue to provide that, not just to the city of Kearney, but to the outlying area as well. And, some people don't realize, we cover 82 square miles. So the two big developments right outside of Liberty on I-35 are both in our fire district. So yes, they have a fire station in Liberty that's fairly close to them, but there is no fire station from Kearney anywhere close to that area. So geographically, we're trying to provide equal service across the entire district to give all the residents the same benefit.
What are your current response times?
On the average, and I report these to the board every month, we run somewhere generally in that 5.5 to 6 minute range.
Is that enough time for someone who might be having something like a stroke?
The quicker you can provide intervention on a critical illness, a stroke, a heart attack, obviously the better. And the other thing I would tell you, why those are average response times, if we have to go just down the street a few blocks, that's pretty easy to attain. If we have to drive, 6 or 7 miles, 8 miles, it's hard to keep those times low, because the only thing we can really control is the time we get out the door. You have to deal with traffic, you have to respond safely, so you can arrive. So there's the only way really to fully impact that response time is to put a facility closer to the area you're trying to reach.
And will the next facility do that? Have you guys looked at any studies as to how that will impact your response times? Yeah,
so we did a project with the Kearney High School with one of the I can't remember the name of them now, the real world learning projects. And they actually did some surveying, looked at the maps and did some mileage calculations and things like that. And they actually took population into consideration. And then they came back with some potential locations for that west side, which would best meet the need of the several components we just visited about. I gave them all the same information in prep for their project. So the primary locations that they recommended are in line with roughly where we thought they needed to be. So I would tell you, yes, I'm confident that those would impact the majority of the areas we're trying to reach.
Okay. Okay. So what happens if one question passes and the other does not? So for example, if the bonds pass, but the tax doesn't, what's the plan?
Right. So, I mean, ultimately, and the way we've advertised it is in order to complete both projects, we have to have both issues. However, if the bonds were to pass, that would allow us the ability to still replace some of those key vehicle replacements. We'd still be able to accommodate those. In all likelihood, we would be able to do some renovations here at the current facility. But without the sales tax, we could build a fire station, but we would not be able to probably operate it and hire the additional people to staff it.